Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
The ex-husband declared in the courtroom, "My daughter has chosen to live in my house." The judge looked closely at the girl. "Do you agree with him?" he asked. The daughter stood up, pulled out a tablet, and quietly asked, "May I show a video from last night?" The judge was stunned. "Good afternoon, dear listeners. We'd love to know which city or country you're tuning in from today. If you enjoy our stories, we hope you've already subscribed to the channel and left a like. Now, get comfortable and enjoy listening." That whole evening, Anna couldn't find peace. She dusted the bookshelves in her small rented two-room apartment on the outskirts of the capital, rewashed the dishes that were already sparkling clean, and kept glancing out the window. Outside, the concrete 9-story buildings loomed gray, almost identical to those from her childhood, only now 30 years older. The rain drummed monotonously on the windowsill, blurring the dim glow of the streetlights. In an hour, Carlos was supposed to bring Sofia home after the weekend. Just one more hour, Anna thought, sitting down on the edge of the sagging sofa and hugging her daughter's worn plush teddy bear, the same Pedrito that Carlos had won for her at a fair 12 years ago when they were still young and seemingly happy. The anxiety hadn't left her since the day the court summons arrived in a thick official envelope, just like the ones her father, a career military officer, used to receive when she was a child. Her ex-husband had decided to sue for custody. For nearly 3 years after their divorce, he had visited Sofia irregularly, reluctantly paid alimony, constantly cutting the amount under the pretext of urgent expenses, and now, all of a sudden, he was overwhelmed by paternal feelings. Anna absent-mindedly turned on the old TV she'd inherited from her parents. The screen flickered, and the news anchor started talking about some international agreements. Anna turned the volume down to a whisper. The news felt so distant from her small world, which was falling apart before her eyes. "He calls and says, 'I'm her father, I have every right,'" Anna had told her mother on the phone a week earlier, nervously twisting the coiled cord of the old landline phone she stubbornly refused to replace with a mobile. City calls were free. "Mom, can you believe it? For almost 3 years, he remembered her only now and then, and suddenly he has every right." Carmen, Anna's mother, had only sighed heavily into the receiver. Anna could almost physically feel her mother adjusting her glasses on the bridge of her nose, a familiar gesture from childhood, always a sign of a serious conversation. "Anita, my daughter, I warned you this would happen. He's an engineer, just like his father. Remember how Don Emilio would always march at the front of the demonstrations with the flag, even though no one asked him to? It's not about the daughter, it's about defeating you. Men like that don't forgive being left." Anna remembered how her mother-in-law used to whisper over the fence to a neighbor at their summer cottage, "Carlito has his grandfather's character, the same difficult, domineering nature." Back then, the comment sounded almost like a compliment, a source of pride. But after nearly 10 years of marriage, Anna understood what domineering really meant, the suffocating control, checking every receipt to see if she had spent an extra 10 pesos on herself, the aggressive outbursts over the slightest remark, the endless interrogations about where she had been and with whom she had talked. And then the threats started. He never hit her, no, but he promised he would make her life unbearable if she dared to leave. "That's not how things are done in our family," he would say. And Anna believed she had to endure it, just as generations of women before her had. In the kitchen, the old refrigerator, bought back in the early 90s, hummed quietly. Anna knew the compressor was about to give out for good, but there was no money for a new one. Everything went toward paying rent, Sofia's tutors, and repaying the loan Anna had taken out last year for her mother's medical treatment. Anna worked as an accountant at a construction company, holding 1.5 positions, and in the evenings, she managed the bookkeeping remotely for a small stationery shop. Her eyes ached from the constant strain, and her back hurt from sitting at the computer for so long, but she managed. She had to, for Sofia's sake. The doorbell yanked Anna out of her memories. She flinched and looked at the clock. Carlos had arrived 40 minutes earlier than usual. That was strange and alarming. In all the time since the divorce, he had never broken his schedule. What's more, he usually called ahead if he was even 5 minutes late, as if to underline his punctuality. Anna ran her hands through her hair and tugged at her t-shirt. She always felt awkward appearing before Carlos without makeup and in regular home clothes. He used to insist that even at home she should look presentable, in an ironed blouse and neatly styled hair, as befitting the wife of a successful man. She was free from those demands now, but the habit lingered. "Mama!" Sophia burst into the apartment, throwing her arms around Anna. At 12, she was unusually serious for her age, as if she had absorbed all her mother's worries over the years. Her dark hair was tied in a tight ponytail, just like Anna had worn as a child. Around her wrist was a homemade thread bracelet, a gift from her best friend Isabella. Anna remembered how they had stayed out behind the building until late last summer, weaving those bracelets, and how she would shout from the balcony, "Sophia, come home." Exactly like her own mother once shouted for her. "How was the weekend, sunshine?" Anna asked, stroking her daughter's hair while watching Carlos out of the corner of her eye. Contrary to his usual habit, he didn't leave immediately but stepped inside the apartment. He was wearing an expensive leather coat, wet from the rain, and polished shoes that left wet marks on the linoleum floor of the entryway. His blonde hair was carefully styled, as if for an important meeting. He smelled of expensive cologne and cigarettes. He hadn't smoked before. "Okay," Sophia mumbled, clinging to her mother. But the okay sounded so small and unsure that Anna's heart tightened. She noticed that Sophia's bright red backpack, decorated with her favorite cartoon characters, wasn't zipped properly, and an unfinished chocolate bar was sticking out of her jacket pocket. Usually neat and tidy, Sophia now looked disheveled and exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. "Sophia, go to your room." "I need to talk to your mother," Carlos said dryly. His voice had the same tone Anna remembered from their final months together, the tone of someone who had made a decision and wasn't going to discuss it. It was the same tone he used when he announced they were moving to a different neighborhood, away from her mother. The same tone when he suggested she quit her old job because there were too many men around. Sophia reluctantly let go of her mother and, casting a worried glance at her father, disappeared into her room. The door closed almost soundlessly. Anna had taught her to be gentle with the flimsy doors in the rented apartment so as not to provoke complaints from the landlady, a retired schoolteacher living downstairs. "What's going on, Carlos?" Anna crossed her arms over her chest, trying to hide the trembling in her fingers. She leaned against the doorframe, trying to maintain distance between them. The tiny entryway suddenly felt like a cramped cage. "Nothing special," he smirked, glancing around the small kitchen with its cracked countertop and faded floral curtains. His gaze held poorly concealed disdain. "I just wanted to see the conditions my daughter is growing up in. You know, for the record. It's cozy here, really, just like a technical college dorm." Anna felt a stab of irritation. She remembered this manner of his, joking on the surface but really striking where it hurt. Like that time he had joked in front of their guests about her provincial accent just because she had mispronounced the name of an Italian wine. "For almost 3 years these conditions didn't bother you," she remarked coldly. "What's changed?" "I've changed, Anita," he said with a smile, though his eyes remained cold, like a fishmonger's at a supermarket. "You see, I met a good woman, Valeria. She's a psychologist, by the way, works at a reputable center, not some neighborhood clinic. She explained to me how important it is for a child to have proper fatherly guidance. You know, what you have here is some sort of matriarchy, your mother. A girl needs a man's hand in her upbringing." Anna stayed silent. She recognized that tone, arguing was pointless. When Carlos spoke in that judicial manner, as if reading out a verdict, any objection only fueled him and turned the argument into an endless monologue listing all her flaws and failures. "That's why I filed a petition with the court," he continued, in the same casual tone one might use to mention a trip to the bakery. He took off his coat and carelessly hung it on the wall hook, which sagged ominously under the weight of the expensive leather. "The girl should live with me. I have a 3-bedroom apartment in the city center, my own study where Sophia can do her homework in peace. Valeria has a private practice, so she'll be home when Sophia gets back from school. And what do you have?" This little hole and constant side jobs until late at night? A grandmother who can barely walk after her stroke. Anna felt a lump rise in her throat. Carmen had indeed suffered a stroke last winter, and her recovery had been slow, but she still came over 3 times a week to spend time with her granddaughter while Anna was at work, cooking soup, helping with homework, reading aloud, all the things she used to do for Anna herself. That's called taking care of a child, Carlos, Anna said quietly, squeezing the frayed expense notebook in the pocket of her robe. She planned every penny, saving on everything except Sophia's education. And Sophia knows very well that I work for her sake. Unlike some people, I don't just forget to pay for her English lessons or dance classes. Did you even ask her? Carlos cut her off, stepping closer. He reeked of cold air and alcohol, likely had a drink before coming to bolster his courage. Do you know what she told me this weekend? Anna froze. Carlos had always known how to manipulate her through their daughter. Even during the marriage, he would say, Sophitas thinks that Mom should. She dreams of having her own room, he went on triumphantly. A proper desk instead of that folding table. She's tired of having to sit with your retired mother while you're off doing your gigs. Do you have any idea how much I earn now? 10 times more than you. Sophia could go to the best school, take tennis lessons, spend every holiday by the sea instead of being cooped up in this tiny flat overlooking a garbage dump. Don't you dare, Anna said quietly but firmly. Inside, she was boiling with anger, but she had learned to control herself. She remembered too well how their arguments used to end, his shouting, smashed dishes, and her tears. Don't you dare talk about my mother like that. She's done more for Sophia than you have in all these years. And don't you lecture me about side jobs. I work honestly, not by laundering money through shady firms. Carlos flinched as if he'd been slapped. Anna knew she'd hit a sore spot. His company had been audited by the tax authorities more than once, and only his father-in-law's connections in the city administration had kept him out of serious trouble. We'll see about that, he hissed through clenched teeth. The hearing is in 3 days, we'll settle everything there. By the way, I hired Mendez. Heard of him? He specializes in family law. Never lost a case. Anna went cold. Ignacio Mendez was a well-known lawyer in the city, and his services cost a fortune. Carlos had money for an expensive suit and a top-tier lawyer, but somehow never enough for child support. We'll settle it in court, he repeated, heading for the door, but he stopped before leaving. And by the way, I'll be calling Sophia every evening until then. I hope you won't interfere with our communication, you know, that could be used in court too. Alienating a child from their father is a serious offense. When the door closed behind him, Anna leaned against the wall and covered her face with her hands. Her legs felt weak, and a single thought throbbed in her mind. He had thought it all through, he was prepared. When she had left him years ago with a 1-year-old daughter and 2 bags of clothes, he had shouted after her, "You'll regret it. She'll be mine anyway." At the time, she thought he meant her. Now she realized he had meant their daughter. Mama? Sophia stood next to her. Her eyes were wide open, frozen in fear. What did Dad mean about court? Anna took a deep breath. She had to pull herself together. She couldn't afford to fall apart now, not in front of her daughter, who had already inherited too much from her and Carlos's happy marriage. Let's go to the kitchen, sunshine, she said, smoothing Sophia's disheveled hair. I'll make you some cocoa with marshmallows, just the way you like it, and I'll explain everything. Grown-up style. But don't worry ahead of time, okay? Okay, Sophia nodded, but Anna could see by her tightly pressed lips that her daughter already understood everything. Her girl had grown up too soon. At her age, Anna had still been playing with dolls and dreaming of becoming a ballerina. Sophia already knew how to manage a household budget and could tell what mood her father was in just by the sound of his footsteps. Later, while Sophia sipped cocoa from an old mug with faded snowflakes, a gift from Carmen back in the 80s that they had once been so proud of, the phone rang. The screen showed Laura, Anna's best friend since school, who had supported her all these years and even given her shelter when she first left Carlos. Anita, are you sitting down? Laura's voice sounded tense. In the background, Anna could hear the sounds of a soap opera. Laura was a devoted fan of Rosalinda and never missed an episode. If you're calling about Carlos and the court case, I already know, Anna replied wearily, absent-mindedly fingering the magnets on the refrigerator. Little souvenirs from the places she and Sophia had managed to visit over the years, a tiny plastic dolphin from Cancun, a handmade seashell from the Caribbean coast. Not much, but each trip was a small victory, a step toward a normal life. No, it's not just that. Laura's voice trembled with worry. I saw Carlos yesterday at the mall with some fancy blonde. She looked like she walked straight off a magazine cover, Louis Vuitton bag, stiletto heels. They were looking at rings, can you imagine? I was standing behind a column, they didn't see me. So what? Anna asked tiredly, though deep down she felt a pang, so he really was planning to remarry. Why should I care? Because I accidentally overheard their conversation. Laura lowered her voice, as if afraid someone might be listening. Anita, he said that after the court hearing, the three of them are moving to the U.S. He signed some kind of contract for at least a year. Says he's opening a real estate company for our immigrants there. And that Valeria, she kept chirping the whole time about how she's going to teach Sophia English and which school they'll put her in. Anna sank onto the stool, feeling her fingers go numb. Now everything made sense. He didn't just want to take her daughter away, he was planning to take Sophia to another country, thousands of kilometers away, across borders and seas, somewhere Anna couldn't even visit her with her meager salary. Anna, are you there? Laura asked anxiously. Yes, Anna whispered. She looked at Sophia sitting across from her, staring at her mother's face with worried eyes. Laura, I'll call you back. I need to think. She hung up and, almost automatically, started scrubbing a pot, a mechanical action that always helped her calm down. She needed a plan. She needed money for a lawyer, at least half of what Carlos could afford. She needed to talk to her mother and ask her to come tomorrow. And most importantly, she needed to calm Sophia, who hadn't taken her worried gaze off her. Mama, Sophia said softly, fidgeting with her thread bracelet, Papa didn't tell you everything. Actually, we. At that moment, the phone vibrated loudly on the nightstand. Carlos's name flashed on the screen, and Sophia flinched, cutting herself off mid-sentence. You wanted to say something? Anna asked, turning off the tap. Sophia shook her head. No, nothing. I think I'll go do my homework, okay? Anna watched her daughter leave, feeling she had missed something important. The phone kept vibrating insistently. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the windowsill like an ominous bell. She had only 3 days to prepare for the battle for the most precious thing in her life. Morning began with the ringing of the old mechanical alarm clock that had survived all their family's upheavals. Anna forced her head up from the pillow. She had barely slept, replaying the upcoming court hearing and Carlos's likely arguments over and over in her mind. Around 4 a.m., desperate to get some sleep, she had gotten up and started writing down everything that could be useful, the dates Carlos had missed his visitations, the times he was late with child support, his rude remarks about Sophia. She filled 3 notebook pages with tiny handwriting, a true diary of a failed family life. Mama, why are you up so early? Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing her eyes, wearing an oversized t-shirt that had once belonged to Anna in her childhood. She looked so small and defenseless. Making breakfast, sunshine, Anna tried to smile, hiding her anxiety. Your favorite, cheese pancakes, just like Grandma makes. With raisins? Sophia perked up a little, sitting at the table. Of course, Anna said, stroking her daughter's head, and with sour cream. Heavy gray clouds drifted past the window. Thunder rumbled in the distance, promising another downpour. How symbolic, Anna thought, remembering that there had been a storm on the day of her wedding to Carlos too. Back then, she had taken it as a good omen, passion, strong emotions. Now, every clap of thunder sounded like a forewarning. Sophia's, Anna began carefully as she poured tea into cups. Remember yesterday, you wanted to tell me something about Papa? Sophia immediately tensed, lowering her eyes to her plate. Her small fingers gripped the fork so tightly her knuckles turned white. It wasn't important, she said quietly. He just said that if I behaved well, we'd go to Disneyland. In Florida. Or the U.S. Anna froze. So it was true, Laura hadn't been exaggerating. Carlos was preparing for the move. Do you want to go to Disneyland? She asked cautiously. Sophia shrugged. I don't know. With you, yes. With Papa, she hesitated. He's different now. Scary. Scary? Anna repeated, feeling her hands grow cold. What do you mean? He doesn't shout like before, Sophia said, pushing her pancake around her plate with the fork, but his eyes were angry. And she suddenly fell silent, listening to the sound of the front door opening. Grandma's here. Familiar footsteps and the tap of a cane echoed in the hallway. Despite having suffered a stroke, Carmen stubbornly refused to use a walker, believing it was only for the very old. Instead, she relied on a heavy wooden cane her husband, Anna's father, had once carved for her. Anita. Safita's. Carmen's voice sounded more energetic than usual. I have news. Anna went into the hallway to help her mother with her coat. Carmen, once a stately math teacher, now appeared frail, but her eyes still held the same determination and clarity as ever. Imagine, I ran into Concepcion yesterday, she began right at the door. You know, the one who used to work as a clerk at the courthouse. She told me quite a bit about your judge, Ricardo Gonzalez. Mom, not so loud, Anna said, nodding toward the kitchen where Sophia was having breakfast. Oh, right. Carmen lowered her voice. Anyway, he's a decent man, principled. Back in the 90s, they even tried to fire him when he refused to get involved in some shady veterans' housing scheme. But he stood his ground. And also, she leaned in close to Anna's ear, he's a single father himself. His wife passed away about 5 years ago. So he understands what it's like for single mothers. Anna felt a small wave of relief. It was the first good news she'd had in days. And one more thing, Carmen continued, pulling an old Nokia phone from her worn bag. I talked to Uncle Federico. Remember, he fixed our wiring last year? His nephew is a lawyer, works at a firm on Bolivar Street. He agreed to help us. Free of charge. Free? Anna repeated skeptically. In their world, nothing came free. Well, almost, Carmen admitted, a little embarrassed. I promised to tutor his son in math over the summer. The boy's a real dunce, barely scraped through to the 8th grade. But that's minor. The main thing is, he'll help us with the documents and tell us how to behave in court. Anna hugged her mother, feeling tears prick her eyes. In the darkest moments of her life, there were always people willing to lend a helping hand. Maybe that was the real wealth, not bank accounts or real estate, but human connections, that invisible web of support that saved you when you needed it most. Carmen stayed with Sophia, and Anna went to meet the young lawyer, Diego. Uncle Federico hadn't exaggerated, his nephew knew his business. Just over 30, Diego spoke confidently and to the point, without the dense legal jargon Anna had feared. The situation is complicated but not hopeless, Diego summed up after reviewing the documents Anna had brought. These days, courts are more inclined to leave children with their mothers, especially daughters. But we have to be prepared for a dirty fight. From what you've told me, your ex-husband seems very determined. What can we do? Anna asked, nervously gripping the cup of long cold coffee. They were sitting in a small cafe not far from the law office, and Anna felt as if everyone around them was listening in. First, we need character references, one from Sophia's school, one from your job. It would also help to find neighbors who can confirm you're a good mother and have a close relationship with your daughter. There won't be a problem with neighbors, Anna nodded. Dona Rosita from downstairs often watches Sophia when my mother can't. And Don Eduardo from apartment 5 is teaching Sophia to play chess. Excellent. Diego jotted something in his notebook. Second, we need to find out exactly what your ex-husband is planning, what arguments he's going to make, what evidence he's going to present. I have a friend, Laura, Anna began hesitantly. She happened to overhear Carlos talking to his new woman. They're planning to move to the U.S. Diego whistled softly. Oh, that changes things, Diego said. The court will definitely take that into account. Moving a child abroad for permanent residence without the other parent's consent is a serious argument in our favor. But how can we prove it? Anna asked helplessly. All we have are Laura's words. First of all, your friend can testify as a witness. Diego tapped his pen on the table. And second, there's something else. Not a typical move, but effective. You mentioned your daughter said something about Disneyland in the U.S.? Anna nodded. That means the child knows something. If we prepare Sophia properly for the hearing. No. Anna cut him off sharply. No preparation. I'm not going to use my daughter as a weapon against her father, even if he deserves it. Sophia will only say what she wants to say, the truth. Diego studied her for a moment, then smiled for the first time during their meeting. You're right. And that's another point in your favor. You genuinely care about your daughter's well-being, not about winning a war with your ex-husband. When Anna returned home, a surprise was waiting for her. In the hallway stood two huge shopping bags with the bright logo of an expensive children's store. What's this? She asked her mother as she took off her shoes. Carlos brought it about 20 minutes ago, Carmen answered tensely. Said he bought Sophia new clothes for the court. He also left this. She handed Anna an envelope. Inside was a check for 5,000 pesos and a note in Carlos's familiar handwriting, for the lawyer. Don't want you to look completely pathetic. Anna crumpled the note in her hand. Typical Carlos, pretending to help while humiliating her, trying to buy Sophia's affection with expensive gifts, flaunting his superiority. Did Sophia see this? Anna asked. She did, Carmen said, sitting heavily on a hallway chair. She hadn't even touched the bags. She said she already has a dress for court, the blue one from the children's store we bought for New Year's. Remember? Anna nodded, feeling tears of gratitude fill her eyes. Her girl, her smart, brave girl. Just then, the ringtone of Sophia's cell phone sounded from the other room, a simple polyphonic tone from the cheapest model Anna could afford for her birthday. Sophia ran out, clutching the phone like it might explode. Mama, it's Papa. Anna took the phone, glancing at the screen. The background image was a photo of the two of them from last year's trip to the lake, a small happiness they had afforded after months of saving. Hello? Anna tried to keep her voice steady. Put my daughter on, Carlos's cold voice said. Carlos, listen. Put my daughter on, he repeated, or I'll record this conversation and use it in court as evidence that you're obstructing my contact with her. Anna closed her eyes, counting to 5 to calm herself. Then she handed the phone to Sophia. Sophia, Papa wants to talk to you. Sophia took the phone. At first, she just listened, occasionally nodding though the caller couldn't see her. Then her expression shifted to confusion, then to worry. But Papa, I can't. Mama, don't, Sophia stammered, her voice shaking. Anna stepped closer, studying her daughter's face with growing unease. What was Carlos saying to her? Okay, I understand, Sophia finally said in a flat, lifeless voice. See you tomorrow. She ended the call and silently handed the phone back to her mother. What did he say? Anna asked softly. Nothing important, Sophia shook her head. He just asked if I liked the gifts. But Anna could tell she was lying. Her whitened knuckles and bitten lip gave her away, the same sign she showed when she was too scared to tell Anna about a bad grade or a broken dish. Sophia, sunshine, Anna knelt down to meet her daughter's eyes. Whatever Papa said, remember, you can always tell me. I won't get angry. I promise, that's the most important thing. Sophia nodded, but her eyes remained wary, frightened. I'm going to do my homework, she mumbled and disappeared into her room. Anna exchanged a glance with her mother. Something's not right. Not at all, Carmen said quietly. You can't fool children, they sense falsehood a mile away. And Sophitas feels that her father is playing a bad game. I'm afraid this game has very high stakes, Anna whispered, looking at the closed door of her daughter's room. That night Anna couldn't sleep again. She lay with her eyes open, listening to the soft breathing of her daughter on the neighboring bed. Their bedroom was so small that the beds were almost touching. Anna could reach out and brush Sophia's cheek, but now, looking at her sleeping daughter, she felt an invisible chasm between them, a gap filled with fear and unspoken words. Outside, the rain continued to murmur, and in its monotonous sound Anna thought she could hear the ticking of a clock, counting down to the court hearing. Tomorrow, in just a few hours, their fate would be decided. And no matter what Carlos had planned, no matter what dirty tricks he might use, Anna would fight to keep hearing her daughter's gentle breathing right beside her every night. The day of the court hearing dawned surprisingly sunny, as if nature itself wanted to encourage Anna. Bright rays pierced through the thin curtains, casting playful shadows on the wall. Anna woke before the alarm, feeling a heavy weight pressing on her body. The fears of the night had not disappeared with the morning light. Mama, you're awake? Sophia appeared at the door, already dressed in the blue dress her grandmother had mentioned. Simple but elegant, it brought out the deep blue of her eyes, just like Anna's. Yes, sunshine, Anna said, reaching out to fix a loose strand of hair. How are you feeling? Sophia shrugged. Okay. Mama, can I take the tablet with me? The tablet? Anna asked, surprised. The old tablet, bought second-hand from a colleague, was usually only used for schoolwork. What for? Well, Sophia hesitated, fidgeting with the hem of her dress. In case it gets boring while we wait. I could read or play a game or something. It struck Anna as odd that her daughter was thinking about games on such an anxious day. But maybe it was just her way of coping with the nerves. All right, Anna finally nodded. Just make sure it's on silent so you don't disturb anyone. In the kitchen, Carmen was already bustling around, unexpectedly lively and organized. Today she wore her best suit, a dark blue one with faint sparkles, carefully preserved since the 80s when she was still teaching. Her jewelry was minimal, only modest pearl clip-on earrings, a gift from her husband for her 30th birthday. I've brewed tea, she reported, pointing to the table. Real Ceylon tea, dug it out from the old reserves. Sandwiches with cheese and ham. And for Sophitas, cottage cheese casserole, just how she likes it, with raisins and dried apricots. Anna smiled gratefully. In critical moments, her mother always seemed to summon extra strength from somewhere, as if it were a legacy from her tough post-war childhood, when only the strongest survived. Are you coming with us? Anna asked as she sat down at the table. Of course. Carmen sounded almost offended by the question. Of course, I'm coming. Laura promised to meet us right at the courthouse. And I also called Donna Marta from your old apartment. Remember, the neighbor from 42? She's coming too. She said she remembers how Carlos used to punch the wall when you still lived with him. She's ready to testify if needed. Anna shook her head. I don't think it'll come to that, Mom. I hope the judge will just listen to us and make the right decision without all the ugly details. In truth, she didn't want the hearing to turn into a public mudslinging match. Despite everything she had been through, Anna didn't want to humiliate her ex-husband or paint him as a monster in front of their daughter. She wanted Sophia to figure out for herself what kind of man her father was, and as a mother, Anna had to do everything she could to leave Sophia the freedom to love both her parents. They arrived at the district courthouse half an hour before the scheduled time. The stern colonial-style building with its tall columns and peeling plaster looked unwelcoming. People with worried faces crowded around the entrance. Some were smoking nervously, some were rehearsing speeches under their breath, others just stared blankly, awaiting their fate. Anita, Laura emerged from the crowd in a brightly colored floral dress, far too frivolous for a court appearance, but typical for her cheerful nature. She hugged Anna tightly and whispered, "Everything's going to be fine, you'll see. I already saw Carlos. He came with his high society girlfriend and some puffed up guy in a suit. Probably his lawyer. Laura, please, Anna said quietly, not in front of Sophia. She glanced around, but her daughter had already wandered off a little with Carmen, looking at something in the window of a small stationery kiosk. Of course. Laura caught herself. I'm just worried about you. You know, I didn't sleep at all last night. I was up searching the internet for how these cases usually turn out. Most of the time, the courts leave kids with the mother, especially daughters. Unless the father can prove that the mother is a danger to the child or can't provide a stable environment, came a male voice from behind Anna. It was Diego, the young lawyer Carmen had promised. Today he looked especially impressive in a sharp gray suit, neatly trimmed beard, and carrying a professional-looking briefcase. That's exactly the argument your ex-husband's lawyer will use, he continued, shaking Anna's hand. They'll try to portray you as an unfit mother, focusing on cramped living conditions, low income, and a lack of opportunities for the child's development. But that's not true, Laura exclaimed. Anita works herself to the bone to make sure Sophia has everything. Easy, easy, Diego said, glancing around. This isn't the place for emotions. All arguments belong inside the courtroom. Right now, let's focus on mental preparation. He pulled Anna aside and quickly went over the instructions again. Speak clearly and to the point. Don't rise to the bait of Carlos's lawyer. Don't interrupt even if lies are told. Wait for the judge to invite a response. Well then, he said, checking his watch, it's time. Are you ready? Anna nodded silently. She noticed how tense Sophia was as they entered the courthouse. The girl clutched her grandmother's hand tightly and held her tablet, which, curiously, she had turned on ahead of time. The courtroom was smaller than Anna had imagined from movies and TV shows. Just a few rows of worn benches, the judge's podium, and a clerk's desk. The old parquet floor creaked underfoot, and faded portraits of long-forgotten public figures hung on the walls. Carlos was already there, sitting in the front row with a straight back, looking more self-assured than ever. Next to him sat a polished blonde in a business suit, presumably Valeria. Behind them was a man with a hard, chiseled face, Mendez, the famous lawyer. When Anna entered, Carlos turned around, and for a brief moment, a strange expression flickered in his eyes, a mixture of smugness and fear. It was so unexpected that Anna hesitated for a second. Sophia followed close behind her mother, clutching her tablet tightly to her chest. She didn't look toward her father, but Anna noticed her flinch when Carlos called out loudly. Sophitas, come here. I missed you. Sophia froze, then glanced uncertainly at her mother. Go if you want, Anna said softly, though inside she was gripped by a dreadful feeling. Sophia slowly walked over to her father, still holding the tablet close. Carlos hugged her with one arm and demonstratively kissed her on the cheek. Valeria, sitting beside him, gave a strange smile and extended her hand in greeting, but Sophia pretended not to notice. What's that you've got? Carlos asked, pointing at the tablet. A new one? Your mom bought it? No, it's old, Sophia said quietly. The same one. Oh, that cheap thing, Carlos waved dismissively. No worries, soon you'll have a real one, the latest model, and your own room with a view of the ocean, an American one, he added pointedly. Sophia said nothing, but Anna noticed her fingers gripping the tablet tighter. Something was happening, something Anna couldn't quite grasp yet. All rise. Court is now in session, the clerk's voice rang out, and everyone stood. Judge Ricardo Gonzalez turned out to be a slender man in his mid-50s, with deep lines on his forehead and tired but attentive eyes. He quickly reviewed the case materials and then surveyed those present. This is the case concerning the residence of the minor Sofia Ramirez, he announced formally. Plaintiff, Carlos Ramirez, the child's father. Defendant, Ana Moreno, the child's mother. Plaintiff, please state your claims. Carlos's lawyer rose. His speech was smooth and polished, as if rehearsed countless times. He spoke of the father's stable financial situation, the high standard of living he could provide, the spacious apartment, and the private school, as well as the benefit of proper paternal upbringing. Then he shifted to Anna, emphasizing the cramped living conditions, the long working hours, the alleged inability to provide enough attention, and even the grandmother's serious health issues. Anna listened, feeling a wave of anger rise inside her. Carlos was twisting their life inside out, turning her sacrifices into negligence, her struggle for survival into a lack of care, her love into an inability to be a good mother. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, there is reason to believe that the child herself has expressed a desire to live with her father. We request that the court hear the opinion of Sofia Ramirez, who is old enough to express it. The judge nodded, then turned to Anna and her lawyer. The defense may speak. Diego began calmly and reasonably, without the pomp of Carlos's lawyer. He spoke about how Anna had cared for her daughter alone all these years, how she worked 2 jobs to provide for her, how she created an atmosphere of love and support despite the difficult circumstances. He mentioned how Carlos had paid child support irregularly and often missed visitation appointments. And most importantly, Diego paused for emphasis, we have grounds to believe that the plaintiff plans to relocate the child permanently to the United States without the consent of the mother, with whom the child has spent her entire conscious life. We believe such a drastic change would not be in Sofia's best interests. A low murmur spread through the courtroom. The judge frowned and turned his gaze to Carlos. Is the plaintiff planning to leave the country with the child? Carlos's lawyer quickly leaned toward him, whispering something, then straightened up. Your Honor, my client does indeed have professional plans related to work in the U.S. However, this does not imply an immediate relocation. Moreover, even in the case of living abroad, the father guarantees regular contact with the mother, including visits during school holidays. The judge thoughtfully tapped his pen on the table, then scanned the courtroom. The court takes note of the arguments of both parties. However, before making a decision, I would like to hear the opinion of Sofia herself. He turned toward the girl, now seated between Anna and Carmen. Sofia, you're 12 years old, that's old enough to express your own opinion. Please tell us, who would you prefer to live with, your mother or your father? The courtroom fell completely silent. Anna felt her heart tighten. She had never discussed the possibility of such a choice with her daughter. She didn't want to force her into choosing between her parents. But what if Carlos was right? What if Sofia truly wanted to live with her father, in comfort, in a spacious apartment, with new opportunities? Sofia slowly stood up. Her small figure in the blue dress looked so fragile and defenseless in the large courtroom. She clutched her tablet tightly in front of her, like a shield. She began, but her voice broke. Sofia cleared her throat and continued, a little more firmly, I want to live with my mom. Carlos jumped up from his seat. Sofia, his voice held a warning tone, yesterday you told me something completely different. You said you wanted to live with me and Valeria in our new apartment in Miami. Order in the court, the judge said sharply. Senor Ramirez, you will have your turn to speak. Your Honor, Carlos's lawyer quickly interjected, the child is clearly under the mother's influence. Perhaps it would be better to speak with the girl privately, without her parents present. The judge considered for a moment and then nodded. Perhaps you're right. Sofia, I would like to speak with you in my office without your parents or any lawyers, just you and me. Would that be okay? Sofia looked uncertainly at her mother. Anna gave her an encouraging nod. She trusted her daughter and knew that without pressure, she would tell the truth. I would prefer to stay here, Sofia said quietly but confidently. And I need to show something to everyone. What is it, Sofia? The judge asked gently. Sofia took a deep breath and looked directly at her father. Last night, Papa called me. He said, he threatened me. He said that if I didn't say in court that I wanted to live with him, then, her voice shook, then he would make sure Mama lost custody. He said he knew the right people who could arrange it, that they would take me away from her forever and put me in an orphanage, and that I would never see her again. A deathly silence fell over the courtroom. Anna felt the ground shift beneath her feet. So that was what the phone call had been about, why Sophia had looked so frightened afterward. That's a lie, Carlos shouted, leaping to his feet. She made it all up. Anna coached her. Silence. The judge banged his gavel. Sophia, this is a serious accusation. Can you provide any proof? At that, Sophia raised her tablet. May I show a video? A video? The judge raised his eyebrows, the first sign of surprise during the hearing. This is manipulation, Carlos shouted, his face flushing red. His lawyer rose from his seat, placing a restraining hand on Carlos's shoulder. Your Honor, Mendez said with visible composure, though a muscle in his cheek twitched, we object to the presentation of any audio or video materials obtained without my client's consent. This violates the right to privacy as stipulated by. I will determine what evidence is admissible, the judge interrupted calmly but firmly. He turned to Sophia. Sophia, what kind of video do you want to show us? Sophia took a shaky breath. Her small fingers tightened around the tablet, her knuckles turned white from the strain. Yesterday evening, she began in a quiet but clear voice. After Papa called, I got scared. He said if I didn't say I wanted to live with him, he'd make sure I'd never see Mama again. She swallowed and continued, a little more confidently, I remembered how in computer class they taught us about the screen recording function. So when Papa called again this morning to remind me what I was supposed to say in court, I recorded our conversation. She held the tablet out toward the judge. He hesitated and then looked at the representatives of both parties. Senor Mendez, Senora Moreno, do you have any objections to viewing this recording? Carlos furiously whispered to his lawyer, but Mendez already realized the situation was slipping out of control. If the girl had truly recorded threats, objecting would only make things worse. Your Honor, my client has no objections to viewing the recording, the lawyer said with visible reluctance. He believes the child may have misunderstood the conversation. Anna nodded silently, giving her consent. She was still so stunned by what she had heard that she hadn't yet fully appreciated the cleverness of Sophia's plan with the tablet. Very well, the judge nodded to the clerk. Please connect the device to the computer so the video can be viewed by everyone present. The young female clerk in a crisp blouse and glasses on a chain took the tablet from Sophia and, with some hesitation, clearly not something often done in this courtroom, connected it to the computer. An image appeared on the large wall screen. Sophia pressed play. Carlos's voice, slightly distorted but recognizable, filled the room. So remember what we agreed on. You'll tell the judge you want to live with me and Valeria, and that your mom is always working and leaves you home alone. But that's not true, Papa. Sophia's trembling voice protested. I'm never alone. Mama's with me, or Grandma, or Dona Rosita from downstairs. What difference does it make? Carlos snapped. Don't you understand what's at stake? This is your future. Your own room, decent food, trips abroad instead of this poverty. And if you don't cooperate, you'll end up in an orphanage. Why an orphanage? Sophia's voice was filled with genuine fear. Because if you don't do what I say, I'll file to have your mother's parental rights terminated. I have connections, Sophia. Good ones. I'll arrange for social services to investigate. They'll find something, your cramped apartment, the fact that she leaves you with a sick old woman. They'll make up something about alcohol, inappropriate behavior, and that'll be it. They'll send you to an orphanage, and I'll take you from there when things settle down, maybe in 6 months. But you'll never see your mother again. Is that what you want? No, Papa. Sophia's voice was barely audible now, tearful. I don't want to go to an orphanage. I want to stay with Mama. Then do what I told you. Carlos snapped. And not a word about the U.S. Understand? No one should know we're leaving right after the court ruling. Just tell the judge you love Papa and want to live with him. That's it. Over and out. See you tomorrow. The recording ended. A grave silence settled over the courtroom. Anna felt a lump rise in her throat. Her hands started to tremble. Valeria, sitting beside Carlos, shifted away from him, her face a mixture of shock and disgust. Even Mendez looked disoriented. His earlier confidence had evaporated. The judge cleared his throat and looked at Sophia. Sophia, can you confirm that this is a conversation with your father and that the recording hasn't been altered in any way? Yes, the girl answered firmly. Papa called me this morning at 8:10. I hadn't even had breakfast yet. I was sitting in the kitchen. And the recording, it's just a function on the tablet. I just pressed the button and that's it. Lies. Carlos jumped to his feet. This was all set up by Anna. She coached her. She made her record this charade. Senor Ramirez, sit down, the judge said sternly. Are you saying the voice on the recording is not yours? Carlos faltered. Denying the obvious would be foolish. A phonographic analysis would easily verify the voice's authenticity. It's mine, but that's not how it happened. I was just explaining to my daughter the consequences if she stayed with a mother who can't properly care for her. Threatening a child with being sent to an orphanage, is that what you call explaining consequences? The judge said calmly, but his voice carried a steely undertone. He turned back to Sophia. Tell me, has your father ever spoken to you in that tone before? Has he ever threatened you or your mother? Sophia hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but usually not this bad. He would say that if I misbehaved, he would stop paying child support and mama and I would starve. Or he'd say that if I didn't do what he told me, he'd forbid me from seeing grandma. And why did you decide to record this conversation? Because, Sophia clenched her little fists, gathering her strength, because I was afraid no one would believe me. That Papa would say I made it all up. He always does that, says one thing and then pretends it didn't happen. Or says I misunderstood everything. Anna listened to her daughter with growing amazement. When had Sophia become so mature, so perceptive? How much she really understood about the complicated world of adults. And how hard it must have been for her to carry that burden alone, not sharing it with her mother so as not to upset her even more. The judge thoughtfully tapped his pen against the table, then turned to the parties. I believe a recess is necessary. The court will adjourn to deliberate. The session will resume in 1 hour. In the hallway, Anna embraced her daughter tightly. Sophitas, my sweet girl, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say anything about how Papa spoke to you? I didn't want to upset you, Mama, Sophia answered simply. You're always worrying, you work so hard. And I could handle it. Anna was struck by the child's wisdom and care. Her daughter had been protecting her, just as she had been protecting Sophia. A circle of love and protection they had built together, mother, daughter, grandmother. Anitas, Carmen said, gently patting her daughter's shoulder. Don't blame yourself. You did everything right. And Sophitas is amazing. Just like her great-grandmother. She was sharp beyond her years, too. Laura, who had been sitting quietly nearby all this time, suddenly burst into tears. I always knew he was no good. Even when you first met him, I told you, Anitas, I don't like him. And now look, threatening a child with an orphanage. I could wring his neck with my own hands. It's okay now, thanks to Sophia. At that moment, the young lawyer Diego approached them. He had been consulting with colleagues at the other end of the hallway. I spoke with the judge's clerk, he said quietly, leaning closer to Anna. It seems Gonzalez was very impressed by Sophia's actions. These days, we're seeing an epidemic of custody cases where parents use children as weapons, and judges are just as tired of it as the kids are. So, your chances are very good. Very good. An hour later, everyone gathered again in the courtroom. Carlos sat there looking stormy, without Valeria, who apparently had decided to distance herself from a man capable of threatening his own child with an orphanage. His lawyer looked defeated, furiously scribbling in his notebook without raising his head. The judge entered, and everyone stood. Gonzalez looked serious, but Anna thought she saw a hint of relief at the corners of his eyes, as if he were glad the outcome was clear and he wouldn't have to struggle with a difficult decision. The court, having reviewed the case materials and heard the testimonies of both parties, the judge began in an official tone, rules as follows: the claims of citizen Carlos Ramirez are denied. The place of residence for the minor Sofia Ramirez is determined to be with her mother, Ana Moreno. Ana felt a warm wave of relief wash over her. Sofia silently squeezed her hand tightly. In addition, the judge continued, and there was a sharper note in his voice, based on the evidence presented regarding psychological pressure exerted on the child by the father. The court deems it necessary to temporarily restrict Carlos Ramirez's contact with his daughter. Meetings may take place only in the presence of a psychologist in a designated setting, no more than once a week, until specialists confirm that such interaction does not cause psychological harm to the child. The judge looked directly at Carlos, without a trace of a smile. I must warn you, Senor Ramirez, that any further attempts at intimidation or manipulation of the child may result in a complete termination of your parental rights. I strongly advise you to reconsider your behavior. Carlos sat with clenched teeth, pale with impotent rage. His lawyer whispered something in his ear, but he seemed not to hear. Court is adjourned. The judge banged his gavel, ending the session. When they stepped outside the courthouse, the sky had cleared after the morning rain. The air smelled of freshness and wet leaves. Ana took a deep breath, feeling the invisible weight that had been pressing on her for days finally lift from her shoulders. I'm inviting everyone over for pie, Carmen announced, beaming with joy. I baked it this morning, Grandma's old recipe with cherries and walnuts. I had a feeling we'd have something to celebrate. I'm in, Laura exclaimed. I'll pick up some champagne on the way, non-alcoholic, she quickly added, glancing at Sofia. Can I have ice cream? Sofia asked quietly, looking at her mother. Of course, sunshine. Ana wrapped her arm around Sofia's shoulders. Today you can have anything you want. And you know what? Let's take the day off tomorrow. I'll call off work, and you can skip school. We'll go to the park, rent a boat like you love. You've earned a real break. Sofia's face lit up. Suddenly her attention was caught by a dark figure moving quickly across the parking lot. Carlos was heading to his car, hunched over, not looking around. Mama. Sofia tugged on Anna's sleeve. Can I have a minute? I need to say something to Papa. Ana hesitated. After everything that had happened, she didn't want to let her daughter approach Carlos even for a moment. But something in Sofia's eyes, a mix of determination and compassion, made her nod. Okay, but I'll come with you. I'll stand nearby. They walked over to Carlos, who was already opening his car door. Seeing them, he froze, his face twisted with anger. What do you want now? He hissed. You got what you wanted. Papa, Sofia said softly. I didn't want it to be like this, really. I just wanted to stay with Mama. You betrayed me. Carlos's voice was full of bitterness. I wanted to give you the best of everything, and you. What's best for me is to be with Mama, Sofia replied simply. And I don't want you to disappear from my life. But please, don't threaten us anymore. Let's just be a normal family, even if we don't live together. Carlos stared at his daughter for a long moment, rage, surprise, and something else, something that looked almost like understanding, flickering in his eyes. Then, without a word, he got into the car and slammed the door. The engine roared, and the car sped away. I thought he would apologize, Sofia said quietly, watching the car disappear. It takes courage to apologize, Ana said, hugging her daughter's shoulders. Much more than it takes to make threats. Maybe one day he'll find that courage. They slowly walked back to where Carmen, Laura, and Diego were waiting. The day was drawing to a close, and the sunset was painting the clouds a soft pink. You know, Ana said, looking at the sunset, we're not moving out of that apartment, even if we can afford something better someday. Why not? Sofia asked, surprised. Because that's our home. It's not the walls that make a home, it's the people who live in it. You, me, Grandma, we are the home. And nothing will destroy it as long as we're together. For the first time in days, Sophia smiled, a genuine, carefree, childlike smile. Yes, Mama. We are home. 6 months had passed. The April sun flooded the small kitchen, casting playful reflections on the freshly washed dishes. Anna stirred the sancocho. On Saturdays, she always made something special so they could enjoy a slow family dinner together in the evening. It had become their tradition ever since that memorable court hearing. Mama, look. I got an A. Sophia burst into the kitchen, waving her notebook. Over the past months, she seemed to have blossomed. The old guardedness was gone, her laughter had returned, and her cheeks were rosy again. She had even rejoined the dance studio she had to leave last year due to money troubles. Well done, sunshine. Anna kissed her daughter on the top of her head. What did you write about? The legal system and the protection of minors, Sophia reported proudly. I even talked a little about our court case. Senora Estrella said I tackled the topic really deeply and that I'd make a good lawyer one day. Anna smiled. After everything they had been through, Sophia had set her heart on becoming a family lawyer to protect kids like her. And you will, Anna said confidently. If you want to, of course. The doorbell rang. It was Carmen. After the court case, she had moved in with her daughter and granddaughter. At first, she said it would only be for a couple of weeks to help out, but she ended up staying. Her small pension and help around the house proved invaluable, and she herself seemed to grow younger, no longer living alone. Loneliness is old age's worst enemy, she often said. My girls. Carmen entered, carrying a bag of groceries in one hand and a large bunch of roses in the other. These are for you. I bought them from an old lady at the market. She was so sweet, like from my childhood. I couldn't just walk past her. Sophia eagerly grabbed the flowers and ran to find a vase. Carmen sank onto a stool, breathing a little heavily. Her heart sometimes gave her trouble. Anita, she lowered her voice, Carlos is downstairs. I saw him on my way up. He's sitting in his car, looking at our windows. Anna tensed. After the trial, Carlos had disappeared from their lives for several months. She had heard from mutual acquaintances that he had indeed gone to the U.S., but alone, without his new partner. Valeria had apparently ended things right after the trial, unwilling to tie her life to a man who could threaten his own child. Are you sure? Absolutely, Carmen nodded. At first, I didn't recognize him. He looks different, worn out. But it's him. The doorbell rang again, making them all jump. Anna glanced through the peephole. Carlos was indeed standing outside, unusually pale, wearing a simple jacket instead of his usual expensive coat, holding a small bag. Sophia. Anna turned to her daughter, who was arranging the roses in the vase. It's your father. Sophia froze. Her face tensed. Since the court ruling, Carlos hadn't shown up for any of the psychologist-supervised meetings with her. At first, Sophia was upset, then she accepted it. But Anna knew that deep down, her daughter still waited for her father to come back into her life, truly this time, without manipulation or hidden agendas. Do you want me to tell him you're not home? Anna asked quietly. Sophia hesitated, then shook her head firmly. No. I'll talk to him. Anna walked to the door and opened it. Carlos had indeed changed. He had lost weight, dark circles under his eyes, and distinct strands of gray now showed in his dark hair, though he had only just turned 40. Hello, Anita, he said quietly, without his former self-assurance. I wanted to. May I see Sophia? Anna stepped aside, letting him into the apartment. Carmen pressed her lips together and demonstratively retreated to the kitchen but left the door ajar to hear every word. Sophia stood in the middle of the room, clutching her notebook like a shield. Hi, Papa, she said, her voice controlled. Hello, Sophitas, Carlos hesitated, not knowing how to continue. Then he held out a bag. I brought you a gift from the U.S. Thank you, Sophia said politely, taking the bag but not looking inside. How was it there? Not bad, Carlos shrugged. I worked a lot, but it turns out being alone in a foreign country isn't much fun. Sophia remained silent, waiting for him to go on. Anna noticed how tightly Sophia's fingers gripped the notebook. She wanted to go to her, to hug her, to shield her from any new pain, but she restrained herself. Sophia needed to handle this conversation with her father herself. Carlos faltered, then took a deep breath, as if mustering courage. I came to apologize to you and to your mom. What I did was wrong. I should never have tried to use you for my own purposes, and I certainly shouldn't have threatened you. He spoke slowly, with difficulty, as if every word cost him great effort. But for the first time Anna could remember, there was no falseness in his voice. Why did you do it? Sophia asked directly. Carlos rubbed his forehead as if trying to gather his thoughts. I don't even know. Anger, I guess, at your mom for leaving, at myself for not being able to keep the family together. And I thought that if I could take you with me, it would prove to everyone, and to myself, that I was a good father, that I could be better than your mom. He glanced at Anna. I'm sorry, Anita. I was a blind fool. You've always been a better mother than I ever was a father. Anna said nothing. Not because she hadn't accepted the apology, but because she didn't trust her voice. A lump rose in her throat. I understand if you never want to see me again, Carlos continued, staring at the floor. But I wanted you to know, I've had a lot of time to think over these past months. And I'd like to try to make things right, if you'll let me. How? Sophia asked. Anna noticed that her daughter's fingers no longer gripped the notebook so desperately. I don't know, Carlos admitted honestly. Maybe we could start with those sessions with the psychologist? I'm willing to go as long as needed. And I'd like to really help you, not just with child support. Maybe pick you up from school sometimes when Mama has to work late, or help you with homework. I'm pretty good at math. Anna caught the glimmer of hope that flashed in Sophia's eyes. The girl instinctively looked at her mother, as if asking for permission. It's up to you, Sophitas, Anna said gently. Only you. Sophia thought for a moment, biting her lip, just like she did as a child when working through a tough problem. Okay, she finally said. Let's try. But if you go back to how you were before, I'll never speak to you again. Carlos nodded, his shoulders sagged, as if a heavy burden had fallen from them. Fair enough. I promise it won't happen again. Then, Sophia said with a small smile, maybe you can have dinner with us. Mama made sancocho, like she used to when I was little. Remember? Carlos looked at Anna uncertainly. I don't want to impose, Carlos said. You're not imposing, Anna replied calmly. Sophia's the one inviting you, not me. If she's willing to give you a chance, I won't stand in the way. From the kitchen, Carmen appeared, clearly having been eavesdropping with the door slightly ajar. Her face showed a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Well, since you're here, she grumbled, why don't you help me set the table, Carlos? Plates are in the top cupboard, you know where. It was almost comical, seeing the once arrogant, domineering former son-in-law awkwardly trying to set the table under Carmen's watchful eye. Sophia giggled, and Anna caught herself, surprised, smiling too. No, of course they would never be one family again. Too much had been said and done, the wounds ran too deep. But maybe they could create something new, a relationship built on respect for Sophia's sake, without manipulation, fear, or bitterness. Outside, birds were chirping, heralding the arrival of true spring. On the windowsill, green onion shoots sprouted in an old enamel mug Carmen had planted. Growing girls need their vitamins, she'd say as she snuck greens onto Sophia's plate. Life went on, not easy, filled with its trials, but beautiful in its authenticity. Mama, are you awake? Sophia whispered that night when they were already in bed. No, sunshine, Anna replied. What's wrong? Do you think Papa has really changed? Anna thought carefully, choosing her words. I don't know, Sophitas. People can change if they truly want to, but it's a long road, not a day or even a month. That's why we'll be careful. Okay? We'll give him a chance, but we'll stay cautious. Okay, Sophia whispered, and after a pause added, "You know, I really liked that we all had dinner together today, almost like a normal family." "We are a normal family," Anna smiled. "Just a little unusual. Every family has its own story, its own struggles, and its own joys." "And you, could you ever forgive Papa?" Sophia asked quietly. Anna stared at the ceiling where the moonlight painted intricate shadows. "You know," she said slowly, "forgiveness doesn't mean we forget the hurt or pretend nothing happened. Forgiveness is when we stop letting past wounds control our present. And I'm working on it, truly. Not for Papa, but for me and for you." Sophia was silent for a while, thinking, and then said, "Mama, I was thinking. Remember that video with the threats? I might not have been able to record it. Or the judge might not have let us show it. What would we have done then?" Anna smiled in the darkness. "We would have figured something out. When you have people who love you, there's always a way. Remember, Grandma found the lawyer, Laura found out about the U.S. plans, and you thought to record the conversation. Together we're stronger than alone. That's what real family is, supporting each other in tough times." "And I also thought," Sophia yawned, snuggling deeper into her blanket, "that I want to be the kind of lawyer who helps good moms stay with their kids." "I'm sure you'll make a wonderful lawyer," Anna said softly. "Now sleep, it's late." She listened as her daughter's breathing deepened, turning into a soft, even rhythm. 12 years old, and still sleeping like a little girl, arms flung out, mouth slightly open. Just yesterday, Anna had been terrified of losing this, hearing her child breathe every night, seeing the first rays of sunlight touch her face, having breakfast together, making plans. 6 months had passed since that fateful day, 6 months filled with simple joys, family dinners, bedtime talks, weekends at the park. A peaceful time, cherished all the more after the storm they had weathered. Tomorrow Carlos would come again. A new chapter in their complicated family story was about to begin. What it would be like, time would tell. But for the first time in many years, Anna faced the future without fear. Whatever happened, they would handle it together, she, Sophia, and Carmen, their small but strong family. Outside, the wind whispered in the young leaves. Far off, a train whistled, carrying passengers into unknown distances. Life went on, offering everyone a new morning and a new chance, and really, what more could one ask for? Anna closed her eyes, feeling the day's weariness dissolve into peace. Ahead was a new day, full of cares and joys, their day. On the nightstand, the old alarm clock ticked softly, counting the seconds of happiness they had fought so hard for and now guarded carefully like a precious treasure.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.